My parents gave my 9-year-old daughter a broken, second-hand doll for Christmas, then laughed and said it fit her, while my sister's kids got new phones. 5 minutes later, when they cluelessly asked me for their allowance from the trust fund I control, they learned just how much that second-hand comment would cost them. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The annual Christmas gathering at my parents' house always began with a familiar, acidic tension. For 38 years, I had walked through their gleaming front door feeling like a visitor, a slightly disappointing satellite orbiting the bright, blazing sun that was my older sister, Brenda. This year, the dread was a physical weight. I had a pounding migraine, and my 9-year-old daughter, Lily, was vibrating with an innocent excitement that I knew, with a mother's painful certainty, was about to be crushed. "Mommy, do you think Grandma Helen and Grandpa Anthony will like the coasters I made them?" Lily whispered, clutching a small, inexpertly wrapped gift. I forced a smile, my heart aching. "I'm sure they will, sweetheart, they're beautiful." The moment we stepped inside, the assault on the senses began. My mother Helen's house didn't smell like Christmas. It smelled like money. A sharp, chemical potpourri blended with the expensive, heavy perfume my sister always wore. The tree was a towering, professionally decorated monstrosity, cold and perfect, with gifts piled underneath in a way that was meant to look bountiful but just looked excessive. "Ava, you're late," my mother Helen announced, kissing the air near my cheek. Her eyes, sharp and critical, immediately scanned my outfit, a simple but elegant wool dress. "That's a quiet color on you, dear." "Hello, Mom. Merry Christmas." "Brenda and her family have been here for an hour," she continued, as if I had personally held up the proceedings. My father, Anthony, gave me a brief, distracted hug. "Ava, Lily, good to see you." He was already looking over my shoulder at Brenda's husband, Mark, who was holding court by the fireplace, booming about a new property development. Brenda, 40 and flawless in a cashmere dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage, drifted over. "Ava, Lily, oh Lily, you've got a little something on your dress, honey." Lily looked down, panicked, but there was nothing there. It was just one of Brenda's casual little cruelties, a way to establish the hierarchy. We settled into the stiff living room, the Golden family on one side and Lily and me on the other. Brenda's children, Mason, 11, and Olivia, 10, were already tapping away on brand new tablets, barely looking up. Then came the gift exchange, the part of the day I dreaded most. It was always a performance, a ritual designed to reinforce who was valued and who was not. "For Mason and Olivia," my father announced, his voice filled with theatrical pride. He and my mother presented 2 sleek, shrink-wrapped boxes. "Oh my gosh," Olivia shrieked, "the new iPhone, the Pro." "Thank you, Grandma, thank you, Grandpa." Mason was already tearing his open. "Only the best for my grandbabies," Helen said, beaming at Brenda, who preened. "They need to stay connected. It's important for their social standing." The message was clear. Their grandchildren were important. Their grandchildren had social standing to maintain. Lily sat quietly, her hands in her lap. She had given her grandparents the coasters she'd painstakingly decoupaged with pressed flowers. Helen had glanced at them and said, "Oh, how crafty," before setting them on a side table where they would undoubtedly be thrown away later. "And here's one for Lily," my mother said, her tone completely flat. She reached deep under the tree and pulled out a small, lumpy package wrapped in what looked like leftover paper from last year. It was so light it seemed almost empty. Lily, ever hopeful, took it with a polite, "Thank you, Grandma." She carefully peeled back the tape. The room was quiet, except for the tapping of Mason's and Olivia's new phones. Lily pulled out the gift. It was a doll, a plastic, generic brand doll, clearly from a thrift store. Its synthetic hair was a matted, tangled mess. Its face had a faint stain on one cheek, and its dress, a cheap pink polyester thing, was torn near the shoulder. I felt the blood drain from my face. It wasn't just a thoughtless gift, it was an insult. It was a message. Lily, bless her heart, tried to smile. Oh, thank you. Then my mother laughed, a short, sharp, ugly sound. We found it at the charity shop last week, Helen said, loud enough for everyone to hear. It's secondhand, of course, we thought. Well, it fits her. The words hung in the air, thick and poisonous. Brenda snickered. Anthony chuckled, looking at his wife with misplaced amusement. Even Mason and Olivia looked up from their phones to laugh at their cousin and her trash doll. It fits her. The room spun. I looked at Lily. Her face, which had been trying so hard to be brave, just crumpled. Her lip trembled and 2 huge, silent tears rolled down her cheeks. She didn't make a sound. She just clutched the broken doll to her chest and looked at the floor, her small shoulders shaking. They had humiliated her. They had taken her sweet, 9-year-old heart and deliberately, casually, broken it in front of everyone. The sound of my daughter's quiet sob was louder than all their laughter. And in that moment, something in me, which had been bending for 38 years, finally snapped. I didn't cause a scene. I didn't yell. My rage was too deep, too cold for that. I simply stood up, my migraine vanishing under the sudden, sharp clarity of my decision. Lily, honey, I said, my voice perfectly calm, go and get your coat, we're leaving. Lily looked up, her eyes wide with a mixture of relief and confusion. She nodded, dropping the doll on the carpet, and fled the room. The laughter died instantly. The silence that filled the room was heavy and accusatory. Ava, don't be so dramatic, Helen snapped, her face hardening. It was a joke. Can't you take a joke? Was Lily's face a joke, Mom? I asked, turning to look at her. Was that funny, too? Oh, for heaven's sake, Brenda chimed in, rolling her eyes. She's fine. You're just teaching her to be overly sensitive. Not everyone gets an iPhone, Ava. It's a good lesson for her to learn about the real world. The real world, Brenda? Is that what this is? I looked at the mountain of discarded, expensive wrapping paper, at the 2 children already ignoring their new $1,000 toys, at the smug, self-satisfied look on my sister's face. This isn't the real world. This is a sick, toxic bubble you've all built for yourselves. Now, you listen here, my father, Anthony, started, puffing up his chest in that way he did when he was about to be condescending. Your mother and I are very generous. We're generous to this whole family. You have no right. You're not generous, Dad, I cut him off, my voice as sharp as glass. You're transactional, and you just made a very, very bad transaction. Lily reappeared, her coat on, her small backpack clutched in her hand. She wouldn't look at any of them. Ava, you're ruining Christmas, my mother hissed, her face flushed with anger. No, Mom, I said, zipping up Lily's coat and taking her hand. You ruined Christmas. You just don't know it yet. I walked us out. I didn't slam the door, but the click of the latch felt final. In the car, Lily was silent for the first 5 minutes. I just drove, focusing on my breathing, trying to get the shaking in my hands under control. Mommy, she finally whispered from the back seat. Yes, baby. Why don't they like me? The question, so simple and so profound, shattered the last of my composure. I had to pull the car over to the side of a quiet street. I turned in my seat to look at her, this wonderful, creative, gentle soul who I was failing to protect from my own family. Oh, sweetie, I said, unbuckling and climbing into the back to hold her. This has nothing to do with you. Do you hear me? Nothing. You are bright and kind, and you are the best thing that has ever happened to me. This isn't about you, it's about them. They're broken, honey. Their hearts are broken. She cried into my shoulder, and I just held her, stroking her hair. She said it fit me, Lily sobbed, like I'm secondhand. I closed my eyes, the cold, hard resolve cementing itself into steel. She's wrong, Lily, and I am going to prove it. We got home, and I made us hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. We put on Lily's favorite animated movie and cuddled on the sofa under a soft blanket. I let her eat cookies for dinner. I was trying to repair the damage, to plaster over the wound my parents had inflicted. My phone, which I'd left in my bag, started buzzing. I ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. A text from my mother, "You are an ungrateful child, Ava. You'd better apologize." A text from Brenda, "Mom is in tears. I hope you're happy. You always have to make everything about you." I looked at the phone. They were all laughing, drunk on their own self-importance and cruelty. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. They had forgotten who Grandma Alara left in charge. I picked up my phone, but I didn't reply to them. Instead, I sent a text to a different number. "Hi, Mr. Davies. So sorry to bother you on Christmas. The incident we discussed, the one that would demonstrate clear and unequivocal bias, just happened. I'm ready to proceed." A minute later, my phone buzzed with a reply. "Merry Christmas, Ava. I'm sorry to hear it, but I'm ready when you are. The documents are prepared." I put the phone down, took a deep breath, and turned my attention back to the movie, to my daughter. The first step had been taken. My family's dynamic was set in stone decades ago. Brenda was the golden child, and I was the artsy one. In my family, artsy was a synonym for unreliable, flaky, and, worst of all, poor. Brenda had followed the approved life path. She got a business degree, married Mark, a wealthy developer, and produced two perfect children, Mason and Olivia. She didn't work, of course. She managed their properties and sat on charity boards, which my mother, Helen, found immensely impressive. Brenda's life was about appearance, status, and ensuring everyone knew her net worth. I, on the other hand, had built a life on my own terms. I was a freelance graphic designer. I'd started my business from scratch, building a roster of loyal clients who valued my work and my professionalism. I wasn't wealthy like Brenda, but I was successful. I owned my own home, I was financially independent, and I was raising a daughter I adored. To my parents, my success was invisible. A freelance business wasn't a real job. My cozy, creative home wasn't a status symbol. Because I didn't have a high-earning husband to boast about, I was a failure. Helen and Anthony treated my career as a cute little hobby, and by extension, treated me and Lily as a cute little, less important family. The irony, the part that now sat like a hot coal in my stomach, was that I was the only one who had ever truly been there for them. When my dad's sales career stalled 5 years before he retired, it was my hobby that saved him. I redesigned his company's entire branding, built them a new website, and created a marketing campaign, all for free. His sales tripled in the next quarter. He never said thank you. And then there was my grandmother, Alara, my mother's mother. Grandma Alara was nothing like Helen. She was sharp, funny, and saw right through everyone. She despised Brenda's husband, calling him a slick-haired peacock, and she openly lamented my mother's obsession with shiny things. Grandma Alara had adored me and Lily. She saw my freelance business not as a hobby, but as an act of courage. "You built something from nothing, Ava," she'd told me, gripping my hand. "Brenda just married something." When Grandma Alara got sick, Brenda was overwhelmed with planning a charity gala. Helen was too stressed to handle the day-to-day realities of hospice, so I did it. For 6 months, I juggled my business, raising Lily, and caring for my grandmother. I sat with her, held her hand, and listened to her stories. It was during that time she told me about the trust. "It's a substantial one, Ava," she'd said, her voice thin but her eyes bright. "And I've made you the sole executor. Helen doesn't have the sense God gave a goose when it comes to money, and Brenda, well, Brenda would light it on fire just to watch it burn." I was stunned. "Grandma, I don't know." "You're the only one I trust, child. You're the only one who reads the fine print." She explained the terms. The trust was designed to benefit her great-grandchildren, Lily, Mason, and Olivia, equally. It was for their education, health, and well-being. My parents, Helen and Anthony, were secondary beneficiaries. They were to receive discretionary lifestyle support, enough to ensure a comfortable retirement. But listen to me, Ava, she'd said, squeezing my hand. It is discretionary. That means it's your call. If they don't act in good faith, if they don't honor the spirit of this family, you have the power. Don't let them bully you. She passed away 2 years ago. And ever since, my parents had treated the trust like their personal ATM and me as their uncooperative teller. This brought me to the kitchen. For the last 3 months, my mother had been utterly fixated on a massive kitchen renovation. She wanted Italian marble, commercial-grade appliances, and custom cabinetry. Brenda says we must have it, Ava, Helen had said in at least a dozen phone calls. It's an investment, and Mark found us the perfect contractor. The quote they'd sent me was staggering. It was easily 40% higher than any high-end kitchen renovation should cost. Brenda, whose husband was a developer, had provided the quote. She was pushing it hard, telling her parents it was a developer's discount. My stomach had knotted. It smelled wrong. It smelled like a kickback. It smelled like Brenda and her husband were trying to siphon money from the trust, using my parents' greed as the delivery system. This was the source of my migraine on Christmas morning. I'd been putting them off, asking for line-item invoices and competing bids, which made Helen furious. "Why are you being so difficult, Ava?" She'd shrieked at me over the phone just last week. "It's our money." "It's Grandma Alara's money, Mom," I'd said calmly. "And I have to do my due diligence." Now, sitting on my sofa, my daughter asleep beside me, I realized the due diligence phase was over. The second-hand doll wasn't just a moment of casual cruelty. It was a legal document. It was Exhibit A in a case of profound, demonstrable bias. They had publicly, in front of witnesses, shown their utter contempt for one of the trust's primary beneficiaries, my daughter. They had, in the clearest terms possible, violated the good faith clause Grandma Alara had so wisely included. My phone buzzed again. It was my father, Anthony. "This has gone on long enough, Ava. Your mother is very upset. We expect you and Lily back here tomorrow to apologize so we can move past this." I looked at the text, "move past this," as if it were a spilled drink. I thought of Lily's face. I thought of the torn doll. "No," I whispered to the empty room. "We're not moving past this. We're moving through it." The day after Christmas, which should have been a quiet day of leftovers and movies, became my day of reckoning. Lily was playing quietly in her room, finally content with her own Christmas gifts, art supplies, books, and a new bike, all bought with my own hard-earned money. I, on the other hand, was in my home office, and I had transformed from a mother into a strategist. The hurt was still there, a cold, heavy stone in my chest, but it was now fueling a sharp, focused anger. My first act was to open the kitchen renovation folder on my computer. For weeks, I had been doing my own investigation, and now it was time to put the pieces together. The quote Brenda had supplied from her husband's preferred contractor was sitting on my desk. It was vague, full of lump sum charges for materials and labor with no detailed breakdown. 2 months ago, sensing a scam, I had done exactly what my flaky, artsy brain was good at. I organized a counter-operation. I'd created a fake email address for a new homeowner in the area and contacted 3 of the highest-rated, most expensive contractors in my parent city. I sent them the exact specifications for the kitchen Helen wanted, right down to the model numbers for the ridiculous commercial-grade stove. The quotes had come in over the last few weeks. I opened them now, side by side. Contractor A, $110,000. Contractor B, $115,000. Contractor C, $120,000. All were astronomical, but they were detailed, professional, and within a reasonable range of each other. Then I looked at the quote from Brenda's husband's Guy. Total, $195,000. It was nearly double. There was no developer's discount. This was a blatant attempt to defraud the trust. Brenda and her husband weren't just getting a kickback, they were planning an outright heist, and they were using my parents' signature as the weapon. My parents, blinded by Brenda's success and their own greed, were the willing accomplices. My artsy nature also meant I was meticulous with records. I opened my Grandma Alara Trust folder. In it was a scan of the full 80-page trust document. I scrolled to the section, now memorized, that I called the Doomsday Clause. It read, "The executor shall have sole and absolute discretionary power to manage and distribute any and all lifestyle support for the secondary beneficiaries, Helen and Anthony. This support is contingent upon their acting in good faith and with equitable consideration for the well-being and emotional health of all primary beneficiaries, the great-grandchildren." Equitable consideration, emotional health. Giving 2 grandchildren new iPhones while giving the third a broken, second-hand doll because it fits her was the very definition of a bad faith, non-equitable action. It was a breach of contract. I picked up the phone and dialed my lawyer. "Mr. Davies, it's Ava," I said. "Ava, I received your text. I've already pulled the file." His voice was calm and reassuring. "How do you want to play this?" "I want to play this by the book," I said, my voice hardening. "My grandmother's book. She gave me this power for a reason. They just gave me the reason to use it." "Very good," he said. "The first step is to formally notify them of the breach. But given the financial element you've uncovered, I suggest we take it a step further. The attempted fraud with the kitchen contract is a separate and, frankly, more legally prosecutable offense. It gives you leverage to protect not just Lily's share, but the entire trust from future manipulation." "What do you propose?" "We freeze all discretionary payments immediately, pending a full audit," he said. "We cite the bad faith incident as the trigger. Then, we present them with the evidence of the fraudulent quote. We give them a choice: accept the freeze and the new terms, or we can discuss the kitchen contract with the district attorney." A cold thrill ran through me. This was it. "And what are the new terms?" I asked. "We exercise your right as executor to restructure the assets. We immediately split the great-grandchildren's fund into 3 separate, ironclad individual educational trusts. That way, Mason's and Olivia's shares are also protected from their parents' greed, and Lily's share is untouchable. The remaining lifestyle fund for your parents? Well, it will be significantly smaller, and any disbursement will require a written request and receipts. For everything. No more lavish cruises, no more kitchen renovations, no more funding Brenda's extravagant lifestyle via her parents." "Do it," I said. "Draw up the papers, send them a meeting request. My office or yours?" "Mine," he said. "It's better, more official. Let's make it the day after tomorrow. Give them a day to panic." As soon as I hung up, my phone rang. It was my mother. I let it go to voicemail. A moment later, a text. "Ava, Anthony and I are discussing the kitchen. We've decided we want the blue pearl granite. You need to call the contractor and approve the deposit today." I looked at the text, then at the fraudulent $195,000 quote on my screen. I thought of the torn doll. They thought I was just the artsy daughter, I thought, closing my laptop. They forgot I'm the one who reads the fine print. To understand what happened next, we have to go back. Back to the moment just after Lily fled the room in tears. Back to that quiet, cold rage that had settled over me. I stood there for a long moment, watching my family. The laughter had stopped, replaced by an uncomfortable, shuffling silence. Brenda was texting furiously, probably complaining about me to one of her friends. My mother was rearranging ornaments on the tree, her back stiff. My father was staring into the fireplace. They were waiting for me to do what I always did: smooth it over, apologize for being sensitive, and pretend it never happened, all for the sake of a peaceful holiday. I could feel the weight of 38 years of expectation pressing down on me. Lily came down the stairs, her small face pale, her coat clutched in her hand. I took her hand, and just as I was about to walk out the door, my father, Anthony, cleared his throat. He turned to me, his expression not one of apology, but of mild annoyance, as if I were the one holding things up. "Well, Ava," he said, forcing a jovial tone, Now that that's over, Helen and I really need to get that kitchen paperwork sorted. We're hoping to break ground next week. Can you come to the study and sign off on the transfer from the trust? This was it, the 5 minutes later from the title. The moment the universe handed me the bat and the piñata. I stopped. I turned around slowly, my hand gripping Lily's. No, I said. The word was so quiet, I wasn't sure he'd heard me. But the silence in the room became absolute. What? Anthony said, frowning. Don't be difficult, Ava, it's just a signature. No, I repeated, louder this time. My voice didn't shake. I won't be signing the transfer. Not for the kitchen, not for anything. Helen spun around, her face a mask of disbelief. What did you just say? Ava, don't be childish just because your daughter got a doll she didn't like. A doll you said fits her, Mom, I replied, my voice ice cold. A doll you used to tell my 9-year-old daughter that she is secondhand. You used Grandma's money to buy $2,000 worth of phones for Mason and Olivia, and you used it to buy a 50-cent piece of trash for Lily. And now, you want me to sign off on a $200,000 kitchen. Brenda scoffed from the sofa. Oh, please, you're trying to punish them. You can't do that. It's their money, Ava. It's their inheritance from Grandma. This was the moment. The beautiful, terrible, clarifying moment I had been subconsciously preparing for since Grandma Alara first showed me that document. Actually, Brenda, it's not, I said, taking a step back into the room. Lily stayed near the door, watching. It's not their money, it's Grandma Alara's money, and she left it in a trust that I control. My mother's face went pale. What? What are you talking about? You're just the executor, you just sign the checks. No, Mom, I said, feeling a sudden, calm power surge through me. As the executor, I have a fiduciary duty, a legal obligation to protect the trust and its primary beneficiaries. Anthony looked utterly lost. What are you talking about? We are the beneficiaries. No, you're not, I said flatly. You are secondary. The primary beneficiaries are the great-grandchildren, Lily, Mason, and Olivia. Brenda sat up, her eyes narrowing. She was finally starting to understand. And the trust, I continued, my voice echoing in the too-perfect room, explicitly states that all great-grandchildren must be treated equally. That any and all support for you, Mom and Dad, is discretionary. It is contingent on your acting in good faith and with equitable consideration for all three of them. I pointed to the torn doll, still lying on the expensive rug. Like a piece of evidence. You just proved, in front of everyone, that you are incapable of that. You just gave me, as executor, legal cause. You just violated the terms of the trust. My father's jaw was open. Ava, you wouldn't. You humiliated my daughter. You laughed at her. You called her secondhand. And then, 5 minutes later, you had the audacity to ask me to sign a check. I walked over and picked up the broken doll. This, I said, holding it up, is the most expensive doll you will ever buy, because it's going to cost you $195,000. The kitchen is canceled. Helen let out a small, strangled sound. You can't do this, Brenda shrieked, jumping to her feet. This is our family. My husband's lawyers will have you removed. Go ahead and try, Brenda, I said, walking back to Lily and taking her hand. But they'll find what I found, that the quote your husband supplied for the kitchen is fraudulent, that you're trying to steal from your own parents, that you're just as complicit in this as they are. Brenda's face went white. I had hit the mark. You'll be hearing from my lawyer, I said, my voice now gentle. Mr. Davies, he has all the paperwork, all the quotes, all the proof. Goodbye, Mom, goodbye, Dad. I turned and walked out the door with my daughter, leaving behind the wreckage. The silence that followed us out into the cold winter air was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. The 2 days between Christmas and our meeting at the lawyer's office were a master class in my family's predictable brand of hysteria. My phone was a constant barrage of their escalating panic. It started with my mother, Helen. First came the rage. Voicemail 1, Ava Marie, you will call me this instant. This is theft. You are stealing our money. How dare you speak to us that way in our own home? Voicemail 2. I am calling my lawyer. This is elder abuse. You are abusing us. Then came the bargaining, which was really just more manipulation. Voicemail 3. Ava, darling, I think we all just got off on the wrong foot. It's Christmas. Tensions are high. You're overwrought. Just call the contractor, approve the deposit, and we'll forget all about this. This silliness. My father, Anthony, tried his disappointed but reasonable tactic. Voicemail 1. Ava, your mother is hysterical. I'm very, very disappointed in your behavior. You've made your point. Now it's time to be an adult and fix this. Call us. Brenda, however, went straight for the jugular. Text 1. You think you're so clever. You have no idea what you've done. Mark's lawyers will tear you and your little business apart. You'll be removed as executor by New Year's. I promise you that. Text 2. You're just jealous. You've always been jealous of me. And now you're punishing Mom and Dad for it. You're pathetic. I didn't respond to a single message. Instead, I was on a secure conference call with Mr. Davies and a forensic accountant he'd brought on. The accountant, a no-nonsense woman named Sarah, had been reviewing the kitchen quote and the related business filings. Ms. Ava, Sarah said, her voice crisp, you were right to be suspicious. The quote from your sister's husband's preferred contractor is not just inflated, it's almost entirely fictitious. What do you mean? I asked, sipping my coffee. The contractor, Prestige Home Solutions, was registered as an LLC only 3 months ago. The address listed is a P.O. box. The contractor's license number they provided belongs to a defunct plumbing company in another state. The material costs are tripled from wholesale, and the labor hours are physically impossible for the timeline given. So it's fraud, I said flatly. This is a textbook attempt to defraud the trust, using your parents as a pass-through, Sarah confirmed. It's clean, simple, and very, very illegal. You have them cold. Mr. Davies cut in. Thank you, Sarah. Ava, this changes the game. This is no longer just a family dispute over a bad faith clause. This is a criminal matter. We present this tomorrow. This is our irrefutable proof. The morning of the meeting, I dressed with care. I wore my best suit, a sharp, dark navy outfit I wore for major client presentations. I did my hair and makeup. I looked and felt like a woman who was not to be trifled with. When I walked into Mr. Davies' conference room, they were already there. Helen, Anthony, and Brenda. They looked smaller in the imposing, wood-paneled room. They had clearly planned to present a united, intimidating front, but they just looked angry and slightly lost. Brenda, in particular, was vibrating with a nervous energy, her eyes darting around the room. Ava, my father started, rising. This is absurd, coming to a lawyer's office. Please sit, Anthony, Mr. Davies said, gesturing to the chair. This is a formal meeting regarding the administration of the Alara Vance Trust. Ava is here in her legal capacity as executor. That one sentence shut my father down. He sank back into his chair, looking deflated. Let's get right to it, Mr. Davies said, sliding 3 bound folders across the polished table. On Christmas Day, Ava witnessed what we are legally terming a breach of good faith. Specifically, the deliberate and unequal treatment of a primary beneficiary, Lily, which included a public statement of her lesser value. This action gives the executor, Ava, full discretionary right to freeze all lifestyle support payments to the secondary beneficiaries, Helen and Anthony. Helen let out a gasp. Freeze, you can't. I can, I said quietly, and I have. This is ridiculous, Brenda spat, leaning forward. You're doing this over a doll, a stupid, cheap doll. She's trying to steal their money, Mr. Davies. Am I, Brenda? I asked, my voice dangerously soft. Or are you? I nodded to Mr. Davies. Which brings us to agenda item 2, the lawyer said, sliding a second, much thinner folder across the table. The matter of the kitchen renovation. He proceeded to lay out, point by point, the findings from the forensic accountant. The fake company, the non-existent license, the fraudulent quote. I watched my family's faces. My father, Anthony, looked pale, his eyes wide, confused. He looked at Brenda, then at the papers, as if he couldn't connect the two. My mother's expression was frozen in disbelief. But Brenda's face went from red to white. The spell broke. Brenda, Helen whispered, her voice trembling. You told us that was a good deal. You said Mark was helping us. It's a misunderstanding, Brenda stammered, her eyes wild. The contractor must have. It's a mistake. Artsy one, you did this. You're trying to frame me. It's no misunderstanding, Brenda, I said, leaning forward. It's fraud, and it's over. The air in the conference room was so thick I could barely breathe. The illusion my family had lived under for decades, of Brenda's perfect success and my harmless irrelevance, had just been shattered. A mistake, my mother Helen had found her voice, but it wasn't directed at me. It was a high, thin wail aimed straight at her golden child. You used us, that quote, $195,000. You were stealing. Mom, no, Brenda insisted, her voice desperate. Mark was he was handling it. It's complicated. It's developer fees. You don't understand. Oh, I think I understand perfectly, my father, Anthony, said. He was pale and he looked suddenly terribly old. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at Brenda with a look of profound, sickening realization. All this time, we thought you were the successful one. He shook his head, a broken, bitter laugh escaping his lips. But you're just a common thief. You were stealing from your own niece, from Lily. Brenda's face crumpled. In that moment, she wasn't the 40-year-old society wife. She was a child who had been caught. You wanted the kitchen, you begged for it. I was just making it happen. You were making it happen by defrauding my grandmother's trust, I said, my voice cutting through her panic. You saw Mom and Dad's greed, and you and your husband used it to try and line your own pockets. You were willing to steal from Lily, from your own children. That hit home. Brenda paled even further. Mr. Davies cleared his throat, bringing the focus back. The attempted fraud is now on the record. We have a few paths forward. What does that mean? Anthony whispered, looking at the lawyer. It means, I said, taking charge, that we can provide this report to the district attorney. Given the clear paper trail, I'm confident they would be very interested in Prestige Home Solutions. Brenda let out a small, terrified sound. Or, I continued, we can handle this, in the family, which is to say, I will handle it. I slid a final set of documents across the table. This is a legal notice. Effective immediately, I am, as per my rights as executor, freezing all discretionary payments to Helen and Anthony. Indefinitely. Ava, no, my mother cried. The house, our lifestyle, you can't. I can, I said. And I am. The trust is now under a full audit to review the last 5 years of expenses that you and Brenda submitted. Anything that looks like this kitchen misunderstanding will be clawed back from future disbursements, assuming there are any. I then pushed a second document toward them. Furthermore, I said, I am exercising my right as executor to dissolve the main great-grandchildren's fund and restructure it. As of today, I am creating 3 separate, protected, ironclad educational trusts, one for Lily, one for Mason, and one for Olivia. Brenda looked up stunned. You're protecting my kids' money. Yes, I said, I am protecting their money from you. Each trust will be inaccessible to any of us, me, you, Mom, or Dad. They are or their education and health only, managed by a neutral third-party trustee alongside myself. Their shares are equal, and they are safe. The room was silent. Helen was weeping, but not for me or for Lily. She was weeping for the money, for the kitchen, for the status she had just lost. Anthony just stared at the table, his face ashen. Brenda looked at me, her expression a toxic mix of hatred and, for the first time in her life, respect. You thought of everything. Yes, I said, I'm artsy. It means I'm good at details. I stood up. Mr. Davies will have you sign the papers acknowledging the freeze and the trust restructure. If you refuse, this entire file, including the fraud report, goes to the DA's office. The choice is yours. My mother looked at my father. He looked at Brenda. Brenda, trapped, gave a tiny, defeated nod. I thought so, I said. I picked up my bag. My business with this family is concluded. Mr. Davies, I'll leave you to it. I walked out of the conference room, my head held high. I didn't look back. I stepped out of the elevator and into the bright, cold afternoon, and for the first time in 38 years, I felt light. I felt free. The weeks that followed were quiet. The storm had broken, and the silence it left behind was profound. I had blocked my parents' and sisters' numbers. Mr. Davies handled all communication. As he'd predicted, they all signed the papers. The threat of public, criminal exposure for Brenda and her husband was a far greater motivator than any sense of shame or remorse. The downfall was not loud, but it was definitive. Brenda and her husband, Mark, are now facing the consequences of their arrogance. The audit I'd initiated uncovered 2 other projects they'd managed for my parents, siphoning trust money. To avoid prosecution, they had to liquidate assets to pay back over $80,000 to the trust. The investigation ruined Mark's local reputation, and their prestige. Lifestyle is a house of cards that is collapsing in on itself. They are selling their house to cover their legal fees and debts. My parents, Helen and Anthony, are facing a much quieter, but to them, more devastating reality. Their discretionary lifestyle support is gone. The trust, under its new, rigid structure, provides only for their absolute necessities: property taxes, utilities, and health insurance. There is no more money for cruises, for designer clothes, for expensive restaurant dinners, or for kitchen renovations. They were forced to sell the large, opulent house they were so proud of, the house where they had humiliated my daughter. They now live in a small condo, entirely on their more modest pensions. They call me sometimes. I unblock them after a few months. The calls are different now. They're hollow, tentative. Helen tried to apologize once. Ava, we just miss you. We miss Lily. I didn't mean it, you know. I know you didn't mean it, Mom, I told her, my voice kind but firm. That's the problem. You didn't think at all, but I have to think. I have to think about Lily. And I won't put her in that position again. Our relationship is not repaired. I don't know if it ever will be. But it is, for the first time, honest. The true reconciliation, the only one that ever mattered, was with my daughter. This spring, I took the money that would have been my own contribution to the family Christmas and used it to enroll Lily in a prestigious summer art camp. A camp she had dreamed of, but I'd never been able to afford. The trust, under its new well-being clause, matched my contribution. Today, Lily and I are sitting in the park. She's sketching in a new notebook, her tongue sticking out in concentration. She is happy. She is thriving. I'm thriving too. My business, my little hobby, has just landed its biggest client yet. I'm moving us to a new, brighter house in a better school district next month. I found the secondhand doll in a box a few weeks ago while packing. I had almost thrown it away, but I stopped. It was a symbol. My family had looked at me and my daughter and seen something less than, something disposable, something secondhand. But they forgot that secondhand doesn't mean weak. It means it has been tested. It means it has survived. I survived them, and Lily will never have to. I am no longer their second-hand daughter. I am the executor. And my accounts are finally perfectly in order.